There's worse seasons to come, but oh man, I do not like Wild Force. And it's a shame too, because it has great things about it. Is it a straight up bad season? No. Is it a good season? Also no. It is a season that falls into, in my opinion, the dead average category. There's some cool, really good things about it, especially two of the best crossover episodes in all of Power Rangers. But it has so many clunky moments, so many questionable choices and decisions. And that song. No, I'm not talking about the theme song, I'm talking about the song Shayla sings. And not to mention the fact that it tries to be a season with an environmental message, and it completely and utterly fails. Welcome back to Animation Station, and welcome to my pretty much biased, very somewhat negative review of Power Rangers Wild Force. I'm sorry, I don't like this season. It has great things about it, but it's just... It has so many problems, and I'm going to get into it after we go over the analytical stuff. Starting out with the main Rangers, and starting right off the bat with setting a precedent, this is the first Power Ranger season to not have a Pink Ranger. That's bizarre. Not to mention the first female White Ranger as well. So, it sets two new precedents right off the bat, which is cool, but it also makes you question a little bit. Anywho, the White Ranger of the season is Alyssa, played by Jessica Rae. Then you have the Black Ranger, Danny, played by Jack Guzman. Then you have Max, the Blue Ranger, and kind of like the little brother of the group, played by Philip Jean-Marie. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Then you have Taylor, the Yellow Ranger, who's actually the second in command of the season. Yeah, again, it's not the Blue Ranger or the Black Ranger. It's one of the other Rangers being the second in command, and it's interesting. She's not my personal favorite Yellow Ranger. We're gonna get to him next time, but I still really like Taylor. Not to mention, she is an Air Force soldier. Like, her background is she was in the military in the Air Force branch as a pilot of a fighter plane. It's a really interesting and unique backstory, and she's definitely one of the stronger characters of the season. Then you come to the Red Ranger of the season, Cole, played by... you know who. I'm not going to say his name because you guys know of his crimes, so I'm not going to give him any recognition. Sorry. All I'll say is he does a good job in his role, and he comes back in a different role that's arguably even better in Samurai. That's it. I'm not going to acknowledge the actor. I'm not even going to say his name. Because in real life reality, he is a scumbag. And he did some pretty terrible things. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up online. It is some horrible stuff. So, yeah. That's why I'm not going to mention his actor. I'll just call him... He who was one of the more forgettable Red Rangers. Yeah. And then you have Merrick, the Lunar Wolf, played by Philip Andrew. He's fine. Then you get to the crossover characters, and there's actually a good bit in this season. First up, you have, of course, the Time Force Rangers, Trip, Katie, Lucas, Jen, and I'll mention the other two in a minute, because this is the season that has Forever Red, which means we get all the previous Red Rangers back together again. So we have Jason, Orico, Tommy, TJ, Andros, Leo, Carter, along with Wes and Eric. Even though Eric being a Quantum Ranger and a 6th Ranger, technically, it's confusing. But you know what? It's Time Force. It's awesome. I don't care. It's just awesome to have all the Red Rangers together again. Well, together for the first time, actually. Especially some of them being former teammates, like Tommy and Jason and Andros and TJ. Like, it's cool. And, of course, Wes and Eric. So, yeah, you get all the Legacy Red Rangers in the season, and it's awesome. One of the highlights of the season, without a doubt. Moving on to the supporting cast, you have Princess Shayla, played by Anne-Marie Crouch. You have Animus, voiced by Charles Gideon Davis, who is in one of the worst arcs in all of Power Rangers, and by far the worst episodes of the entire season. Yeah, I'll get to that in a minute, because, man, this whole arc is stupid. And then, in the supporting cast, and not a villain this time, you have Randzik returning, played again by Vernon Wells. And what's great about the crossover episode with Time Force in this season is that it fixes all the plot holes from Time Force, as well as kind of acts like an epilogue to Time Force. So it concludes the other season really well, while also being a highlight of the current season. That's the best way I can explain it. So yeah, Randzik by Vernon Wells. And then the one I forgot to list last time, Nadira, because I didn't remember who played her, and now I know. It's Kate Sheldon. I looked it up after I did that review, so... Yeah, Kate Sheldon, and apologies to the actress for not giving her recognition. And then we have some legacy characters returning. Alpha, voiced by Richard Stephen Horvitz, even though it's for one line, but it's still awesome that he's there. And Bulk and Skull also return, even though arguably it's in just one little scene in Forever Red, where they're running a juice bar. Yeah, homage to Mighty Morphin. And of course, they recognize and have respect for Tommy. And they're the ones that give Tommy the phone that calls him to, the gathering of these Red Rangers. So, yeah, that's cool. You have those legacy characters returning. And then, as for the other characters, we have Richard and Elizabeth Evans, Cole's mom and dad, played by Jack Maxwell and Anna Bianco, that are both killed by Master Org. Yeah. Then there's Kendall, played by Sandra McCoy, just random supporting character, along with Willie, played by J.D. Hall. And then, sadly, I hate to do it, but I have to mention it because I did say I would give the flowers to all the Ranger actors that have passed away throughout this entire marathon. And this is sadly one of the more well-known ones. This is Bob Pappenbrook's final role before his tragic passing in 2006. As Mike the fishing store clerk. He's only in one episode, but he does a great job, and it is his final performance in Power Rangers before his sad passing. So, yeah. Rest in peace to Bob Pappenbrook. He did really great things with the series, and he was given a pretty dignified send-off. So, yeah. Rest in peace, Bob. May the power protect you always. Moving on. Next, let's get to our villains. We have Master Org, played by Ilya Volok. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. No offense to the actor, but Master Org is a terrible villain. Sure, he kills Cole's parents, but what else does he really do that's actually noticeable, aside from actually being a human with Org powers, as we find out later in another episode? Like, aside from that, what does he really do? I mean, bless the actor, he's trying his best, but Master Org is one of the worst villains in this series. You will not be able to prove me otherwise. So yeah, Master Org, terrible villain, no disrespect to the actor. Then you have Jindrax, who is voiced by two different people. Yeah, this happens a couple times in this season. There's Richard Castaneau, who voices him for the first 4 episodes. And then the rest, he's voiced by Danny Wayne Stolko. I couldn't find why that happened, but I end up finding out later what actually caused that to happen. I'll put it in a pinned comment on this video as corrections or whatever. Then you have Tatsuka, played by Sin Wong. She's fine. Retinax, played by Michael Sorek. He's fine. Nazor, played by Ken Merkix. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name again. As Nazor, he's fine. Then you have Zanaku, who ends up becoming Merrick later on. Voiced by Dan Warren in episodes 10 through 12. And then he's later replaced by Lex Lang from episode 13 onwards. So, once again, a shift in voice actors in the middle of a season. Yeah, this season feels very rushed. Then there's Mandalok, who's again voiced by two people, but this time it makes a bit more sense because it's a monster made up of mouths and it has two different voices. It has a male voice played by Ezra Weiss, and once again, you have Barbara Goodson returning as the female voice. Yeah. Barbara just keeps popping up in the series. Then you have Onikage, played by Dan Warren, and then you have the Putreds, which are the same meh foot soldiers we've come to know as. And then for the crossover villains, this one's pretty interesting, because there's actually two of them this time. First of all, we have the Remnants of the Machine Empire. And these first three are really cool, because these are names you're going to recognize. First up is General Venjix, voiced by Archie Cow. Yeah, that's the Blue Lost Galaxy Ranger. I believe it was Lost Galaxy, right? It was either Lost Galaxy or Lightspeed Rescue. Then you have Garrick, voiced by Walter Jones, obviously the first Black Ranger, which is really cool. And then you have Tesla, who doesn't really have many lines in the episode, Forever Red, but she's voiced by Catherine Sutherland. Yeah, the Mighty Morphin Pink Ranger. That's interesting. It really goes to show you how far they went to try and make this feel like an anniversary special. And they succeeded. And I'm gonna praise the ever-living you-know-what out of it after I finish all this other stuff. Then moving on from there, we have to get sad again because we have Steelon, who's voiced by Scott Page Pagter, who sadly passed away as well. So rest in peace to him. Then we have Automon, voiced by David Walsh, and a really cool little detail, the Cogs from Zeo return as the foot soldiers of the episode. That's a really nice touch. I was not expecting them to go so far as to actually include the foot soldiers from that specific season. I just thought it was going to be like recolored Putreds or something. In fact, this episode doesn't even have anything to do with Master Org, which is one of the reasons why it's so good. And then for reinforcements from the future, the crossover with Time Force, you have the Mute Orgs, which are these mutant org combination things that were actually created by Ranzig. You have Rofang, voiced by Kim Strauss, and then you have David Lodge voicing Kyrd and Takach. Or Takach. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. But yeah, that's pretty cool. Not to mention, it's a great motivator to actually have this crossover. Apologies, I have another cough drop in my mouth. Anyway, moving on. Next up, we have the weapons. There's a lot in this season, so let's just run through them real quick. For the universal weapon, you have the Crystal Sabers. And then for the Ranger-specific weapons, you have the Red Lion Fang, the Golden Eagle Sword, the Blue Shark Fighting Fins, the Black Bison Axe, the White Tiger Baton, and the Lunar Q. Yeah, that last one's a bit confusing. And then all five of the main Rangers, not including 6th Ranger, combine together to make the Jungle Sword. And then we also have the Falcon Summoner and the Falconator for the Red Ranger, as well as an Armadillo Puck for the Red Ranger, the Sword of Pardalis for the Blue Ranger, the Rhino Shooter for the Black Ranger, and for the White Ranger, a Deer Clutcher. That's a weird name. Then for the Battleizer, you only get one this season, the Animarium armor, which looks cool, but it's only exclusive to the Red Ranger again. Then for the vehicles, you only have two in the season. You have the Savage Cycles, they're fine, and the Wild Force Rider, which really only has a purpose in Forever Red. Now we get to the Zords, and this might be the longest list of Zords I have in this entire season, not including the Legacy Zords in Super Mega Force. So just buckle up and bear with me here. First up, we have the Wild Force Wild Zords, which consist of Red Lion, Yellow Eagle, Blue Shark, Black Bison, and White Tiger. Then you have the Dark Wild Zords, which are wielded by the Lunar Wolf, otherwise known as Merrick, as well as Zenaku, his evil version, which are the Wolf, the Hammerhead, and the Alligator. Then you have the, I don't know why they named it this, but please do not flag me for saying it, okay? Please? Okay. The Isis Wild Zords. I don't know why they named it that either. That is a problematic name. So for this one, the Yellow Ranger isn't involved in this combination. Instead, we have the Falcon for the red, Giraffe for the blue. Black Ranger gets 2 with the Rhino and Armadillo. And then you have the Deer Zord for the Pink Ranger. And then you have the Animus Wild Zords, which is Animus's Megazord form, which consists of Black Lion, Condor, Saw Shark, Buffalo, and Jaguar. And then on top of all of that, you still have 4 other miscellaneous Wild Zords on top of all of that stuff. You have Gorilla for the Red Ranger, the Black Bear and Polar Bear for the Yellow Ranger. Yes, she gets 2. And then the Soul Bird, which is just some miscellaneous Zord. Yeah, that's a lot of Zords. However, not including all the numerous wonky combinations that I'm not going to list because it'll take at least an hour, you only get 4 Megazords. You have the Wild Force Megazord, the Dark Predazord Megazord, the Isis Megazord. Seriously, whoever thought that was a good name for a Zord needs to be fired. And of course, Animus himself is a Megazord. So, yeah. Moving on from that, let's go to the essential episodes. And these are all the episodes that are the most important of the season if you decide to force yourself through it. So let's go ahead and jump in, shall we? We have Lionheart, which is the pilot. Which, interesting thing about the pilot, though, that I do want to point out is that the pilot episode already has most of the team together. They just don't have a Red Ranger. So the pilot is about getting that Red Ranger to complete the team. That's fascinating. I can't really remember any other time in Power Rangers where that actually occurred. Seriously, that's really interesting. Then you have Darkness Awakening, which is the intro of the Wild Force Megazord, and of course, Master Org himself. Then you have Ancient Awakening, the intro of the Savage Cycles. Bare Necessities, this is when you get Taylor's backstory. Soul Searching, this is our first hints at Cole's past and how it connects to Master Org. Then you have Soulbird Salvation, which is of course intro of the Soulbird, that one's self-explanatory. Then you have the 6-part Merrick arc, as I'm going to call it, which consists of Curse of the Wolf, Battle of the Zords, Predazord Awaken, Identity Crisis, Ancient Warrior, and Lone Wolf. Yeah, I don't know why it's 6 parts either. It's very long-winded. Then you have the Wings of Animaria, which is the intro of the Animarium armor. And then you have, of course, the Time Force crossover, which thankfully they made 2 parts, so it didn't feel rushed. Reinforcements from the Future, Part 1 and 2. I love this crossover. It's been highly regarded as one of the best in all Power Rangers, and it's for a very good reason. Not only does it work as a great epilogue and conclusion to Time Force, but it's also a standout episode in the season that's currently, airing here, Wild Force. Like, seriously, it's an amazing two-parter. You gotta check it out, and it absolutely, it's pretty much the redemption arc of Ranzik's character, while also, again, working as an epilogue to Time Force, and in a great way at that. So yeah, that's an awesome crossover. We'll gladly watch that one. Then you have Master's Last Stand, which is the final episode that aired on Fox before it switches over to ABC Kids, because this was around the time when Disney took over the franchise, even though they wouldn't completely take it over and turn it into a so-called Disney era until Ninja Storm, which we'll talk about next time. But at this point, Disney was producing everything, but they weren't fully in control yet. And it's also the intro of Matlock. And then you have Unfinished Business, which is the first episode to air on ABC Family, which is the network that Disney had at that time to air the rest of Wild Force before it switches over to Jetix, which became the home of Power Rangers up until Operation Overdrive. Yeah, I know, I'm getting a little analytical, and I'm sorry. But yeah, that's pretty cool. And then you have the reappearance of Zanaku and his ultimate defeat at the hands of Merrick. Then you have the Animus arc, consisting of one episode that I'm not listing because it's not essential and is more of a filler episode than anything. And then you have the other two parts, which is Monitoring Earth and Soul of Humanity, where Animus poses as this little kid Kite. This little kid Kite is an absolutely unlikable little you-know-what. And then when he reveals himself as Animus, he's disappointed with what he sees, but he puts all the blame on the Rangers for it and takes away their Zords. What conclusion did you need to come to do that, Animus? Seriously, Animus, he angers me, and Kite is such a horrible character as well. Seriously, I understand being upset with the way that the humans are polluting the Earth. I can understand that. But why take it out on the Rangers that are trying to change that? That just feels so backhanded. Not to mention the writing is garbage. In in all three of those episodes, the writing is absolute garbage. Just screw the Animus arc. It's total trash. But it's necessary, so it has to be there. You know what? I don't care. I don't care if it's necessary. Skip the Animus arc. It's a pile of crap. Thankfully, though, now we can finally talk about Forever Red. It is arguably the best crossover in all Power Rangers, for a very good reason. It was made for the 15th anniversary of Power Rangers. It was released on Earth Day, and it has all the Red Rangers from every season of the show up to this point, from Mighty Morphin all the way up to Wild Force, and even including the Alien Ranger, and all one big unison to stop the remnants of the Machine Empire from resurrecting Serpentera, destroying the Earth, and dominating the galaxy. Everyone puts in A-game performances. You get not one but two amazing fights, one unmorphed and one morphed. Great special effects, amazing cinematography, great writing, sharp, super sharp story writing, and some of the best action you'll ever see in Power Rangers. Seeing all these Red Rangers fight together and all their morphs together, it is just mind-blowing and incredible. And Tommy being the kind of sort of leader of this team of Rangers makes a lot of sense because he is the fan favorite and he is the one that comes back the most often out of all the Rangers in the entire Morphin grid and Ranger Pantheon. Seriously, Forever Red is just as amazing as you've heard of, and you absolutely need to watch it. I do not like this season, but I will absolutely watch Forever Red over and over and over again. Seriously, Forever Red is an amazing special, and arguably the best way Power Rangers has ever celebrated its legacy. Well, at least until Dino Thunder, and then later on in Beast Morphers, but we'll get there when we get there. And no, I'm not acknowledging Super Megaforce, because Super Megaforce is rushed out garbage. I will explain why when we get there. Moving on. Then we have Masters Herald Part 1 and 2. This is the part of the 6-episode endgame that leads into the finale, and it starts off with the death of Toxica and Mandalok. Yeah, they straight up died. Like, there's no hinting at it. There's no maybe subtle nods at it. No, they just straight up die on screen. It's brutal. Even though it's right away almost completely negated, because in Fishing for a Friend, Tatsuka gets resurrected from the ghost world by Mandalok. Mandalok stays dead, but Tatsuka being resurrected, just why? Then it continues into Sealing the Nexus, which is the third part of the endgame, and then this is when Tatsuka and Jindrax turn into good guys and aid the Wild Force Rangers. And then you have the finale, End of the Power Rangers Part 1 and 2. It's a finale. There's one cool part about them having no powers left and standing in the rain against Master Org. That's a really cool shot. But aside from that, like... I could go on and on. I just don't... The finale is so flawed. And that's this whole season in a nutshell. It's flawed with a few little hints of something great. Going back to animals for the theme wasn't a bad idea. I don't think having an environmental message is a bad thing. And of course, like I said, 2 of the best crossover episodes in the entire Power Rangers series. And I do like, for the most part, the costume design of these Rangers. Even though, like I complained with in Time Force, the claws on the gloves are so flipping stupid. I get, like, fully embracing that animality of these Rangers, but claws on the gloves? Like, really? Claws on the gloves. Just one of the many terrible, baffling decisions in this season. But the rest of it's fine, and I do like how unique all their helmets are. The rest of it's fine. It's just those gloves. Those gloves almost absolutely ruin it. Then moving on from there, the writing is inconsistent. Some Rangers are better than others. Animus is a total turd and leads to the worst arc in arguably all of the entire franchise. The finale is underwhelming. Some plot lines are just outright thrown away and never brought up again. And again, having Tatsuka die just to have her resurrected is just such a cheap way to... It's cheap. It's a cheap way to just bring back a villain just for the sake of it. Because it's a finale. Like, this season is frustrating. It has some really good things about it, but it is almost completely weighed down by the numerous horrible crap that gets thrown into it and alongside it. This season is flawed, and I just can't like it. I will watch the 2 crossover episodes again, but the rest, honestly, I don't care to sit through at all. This is one of the weakest seasons of Power Rangers, and it's the first time I can say that I did not enjoy a season of this show. And that's saying something. It's not as bad or garbage as Turbo, but it is not good. I understand that may be a bit controversial, but it's just not good. Like, I've tried. I have really tried to like this season and figure out what it was trying to do. The only problem is when I tried to do that, it only showed more flaws and problems. But who knows? Maybe it's your all-time favorite season of the show. And you know what? If it is, cool. You're entitled to your opinion, and I respect you as long as you're not a total turd in my comment section. But to me, this season is a dead average 5. It has really good things about it, but it's completely held back by all the garbage that gets thrown in with it. And for the end of another era of this franchise, the post-Zordon era, it is a weak way to go out. Thankfully, though, next time we have a really good season, followed by a season I'm very excited to talk about. So, yep, that's all I got. I'll see you guys next time for the start of the Disney era with Power Rangers Ninja Storm.